Hello everyone! Welcome to a very special edition of Your Story is Fishkill's Story. I'm Lisa Gomez, a librarian at Blodgett Memorial Library in Fishkill, New York. It is September 15th, 2020, and we are here in the local history room at Blodgett Library. And I am here with a very special guest. This is Antonia Houston, the Blodgett Memorial Library's local history librarian. And she is here today, and she's going to give us a mini lecture on So You Think You're from Fishkill. So she's going to dive a little bit into the town boundaries and where your origins might really be from. Even if you think you're from Fishkill, you might actually be from someplace a little bit different, but still in the remaining areas. So very excited. Thank you so much for being here with us, Tony. Now, are you from Fishkill yourself?
I'm not from Fishkill. My husband got a job with IBM. He's still with IBM. He's retiring next year. He's one of those rarities. I have a degree in library science and archives. When we came here, I got a job downstairs at the desk, and we had one little kitchen cupboard with local history material. And the director at the time asked me if I, with my archives background, if I wanted to start working with them. And then we got donations, and we got a lot of archival material from a former town historian, and it grew into this room, and I just kind of fell into it and didn't know anything about Fishkill, didn't know anything about New York. I'm from the Midwest, and I just learned it all.
Oh, wow. So you've been studying Fishkill's history for a while.
Yeah.
Where did it all kind of begin as Fishkill as we know it today?
Okay. Well, the original land grant was the Roundabout Patent, made in 1682 by King James II.
Now, what is a patent exactly?
Well, a patent is a land grant, and it was usually made by wealthy men who bought the land from the Native Americans, but the king granted them land to make money. It was a money deal. The Roundabout Patent included 85,000 acres and covered land from the Fishkill Creek to 500 rods west of the Wappingers Creek and then into the woods 4 hours going, or 16 English miles. There were many other patents in Dutchess County as well, but we're only going to deal with basically the Roundabout Patent. In 1683, New York was divided into 12 counties for administrative purposes. Putnam County was still a part of Dutchess County at this time. Until 1713, the earliest records, wills, deeds, etc., however, will be found in Ulster County across the Hudson, as there wasn't enough of a population in Dutchess County to warrant a government center at that time.
Oh, so what was the population at that time?
The first census in 1714, there were 445 people in Dutchess County, including 29 enslaved people.
Now, I was just wondering, where does the name Dutchess County come from? Where did we get that name?
Well, lots of people think that Dutchess County was named for the Dutch, and it's not, even though they accounted for many of the early settlers. In fact, it's the original spelling for the wife of a duke, and the county was named for Maria Beatrice d'Este, the wife of James II of England. There is a companion Dukes County in Massachusetts, and it's Martha's Vineyard and some of the associated islands. So in 1719, the county was divided into 3 wards, north, middle, and south, with a middle south line going right through the Roundabout Patent. This was to facilitate land sales and other governmental responsibilities such as taxation. So some of the early tax lists will be South Ward, Middle Ward, which of course goes right through the roundabout, so you have to look at both. In 1731, Dutchess County added a 10-mile strip along the eastern edge called the Oblong. They got the land from Connecticut in exchange for the panhandle that Connecticut now has along the Long Island Sound. In 1737, the colonial legislature authorized the county to be divided into precincts, which pretty much followed the patent lines, except the Poughkeepsie precinct took over the land west of the Wappingers Creek, all the way to the creek, from the Roundabout precinct, which was otherwise unchanged. New York's first constitution in 1777 established the systems of counties, cities, and towns as governmental units. In 1788, the precincts were renamed towns, and the 12 original towns of Dutchess County came to be. Remember, Putnam County is still part of Dutchess.
Oh, interesting. So what would constitute a town exactly?
That's really confusing if you're not from New York. It took me a while to figure it out because I'm from the Midwest. A town isn't what you think. It's not nice laid out streets and little houses all in rows. As a subdivision of a county, it's the equivalent of what a lot of other states would call a township, or maybe an unincorporated area. Each town has its own government. Many are rural, with more farms, cows, or orchards than people, but others can be very suburban. Within the towns, there are incorporated villages, which each has its own government, and unincorporated hamlets. There's also cities, which have their own governments, and they're not part of any town. Thus, there's both a city and a town of Poughkeepsie. Poughkeepsie is the county seat.
What's the difference between a hamlet and a village?
Well, hamlets don't have any government status. They're just little places. Most of them were thriving places in the 18th and 19th centuries. They had their own post office and maybe a stage or a railroad stop. They would have had telegraph stations. Some still exist today, centered around a church, a shopping center, maybe a post office still. Some examples are Houstonville, Dutchess Junction, Glenham, New Hackensack, Brinkerhoff, Wickopee and Fishkill, or Hopewell Junction, Fishkill Plains, and Stormville and East Fishkill. Others are simply place names like Myers Corners, or weird names, what's Swordoutville? Some have mailing addresses in surrounding towns, such as Wappinger or Beekman, like Fishkill Plains' mailing address is Wappinger.
We actually see this today at the library a lot of times when we're determining if a patron's home library will be Blodgett or Grinnell. We look at the mailing address or the parcel of land. So it's very interesting that that still rings true today. Wow.
And realtors have even made up names for places that don't otherwise exist, such as West Fishkill, which is never existed, in my mind never should exist, never will exist. There's no such thing as West Fishkill. So if you ever hear about it, ignore it. Now, Putnam County split off from Dutchess County in 1812, though in 1806, a little corner of Phillipstown along the Hudson was annexed by the town of Fishkill. It was cut off by mountains from the rest of Phillipstown, and you could only get to it from Fishkill. There's also a little part of Dutchess Junction that's part of the town of Fishkill, but you can only get to it by going through the city of Beacon, and you can't get to it by going through the town. So there's all these little weird things. More subdivisions followed. In 1821, the town of LaGrange, originally called Freedom, and then renamed for the Marquis de Lafayette's farm in France, was established, and half of that came from the town of Fishkill and half from the town of Beekman, which is the next town to the east. East Fishkill, which was almost called Irving, and I have no idea why it was almost called Irving. I've looked into that. There's no record. That split off in 1849, and then the town of Wappinger, with no S, in 1875. Now, the village of Wappinger Falls, which does have an S, lies in both the town of Wappinger and the town of Poughkeepsie, divided by the Wappingers Creek. Similar divisions took place elsewhere in Dutchess County until we ended up with the current 20 towns. The same thing happened in Putnam County, where the original 3 towns eventually became 6. And they had some crazy land divisions because they split into 6, but then part of one town went to another town, and that's a whole other kettle of worms that I try not to think about much. So within, but not part of the town of Fishkill, is the city of Beacon, which was formed in 1913 by the union of 2 villages, Matawan, which was on the mountain end, and Fishkill Landing, sometimes called Fishkill on Hudson, which is part along the shores. So Fishkill can refer to many, many different things. Unlike other states, municipal services don't follow town borders. School and library districts, fire, water, sewer districts, each seems to go wherever it will, crossing village, town, and even county boundaries. That drove my husband crazy. He's from Massachusetts, and everything is by the town. Everything is bounded by that little, and he came here, and it's like, this makes no sense. It's like, no, it doesn't.
So what does this mean if you're trying to figure out where your Fishkill ancestors lived or worshipped, worked, or were buried?
Well, first, depending on the time frame, you need to expand your search to include areas that are now in other towns. For example, if they lived in the very northern point of the original town, they might have attended the Pleasant Valley Presbyterian Church, which on a current map would appear to be 3 towns away, but actually might have been by far the closest to them. I love this map set because if you hold them up together, you can look through and see. Yeah. There's one, and it helps clarify things a lot. Or if they lived near the southern border, along what's now the Putnam County line, records might now be in Putnam County. But the confusion doesn't end with place names and locations. New York State didn't mandate the town keep vital records, births, marriages, and deaths, until 1880. And even then, they didn't really do a good job until about 1913. So you're not going to find certificates when you go to the official government places. So you're going to have to look at church records, cemetery records, wills.
So how do church records fit into all of this?
That's going to be your best place to go to find a lot of marriage and baptismal records. And in the 18th and even early 19th century, most people attended the church that was closest, even if it wasn't their denomination. Really, you didn't have much choice. There usually was only one church there, and you just went there because that's what you had. For many people in Fishkill, this meant the Dutch Reformed Church, which is now called the Reformed Church in America, because the denomination dropped the word Dutch in 1867. The first church in Fishkill was the Fishkill Reformed Church, established with Poughkeepsie Reformed Church in 1716. They shared a minister, but each one kept their own records until they separated in 1773. Hopewell Reformed in 1757 and New Hackensack Reformed in 1758 were daughter churches of Fishkill, and the 3 shared one minister until 1805, when Hopewell and New Hackensack split off. Now, depending on where someone lived, the family could have attended 1, 2, or all 3 of the churches and could have had kids baptized in any or all of them. But it didn't mean they moved. It's just where they were located within the area. Each church kept separate records. Hopewell and New Hackensack shared a minister until 1826, when they went their own way. Fishkill Landing Reformed, now Beacon, was also a daughter church of Fishkill, and that was established in 1813, and they had their own minister and set of records. They're closing this year. Glenham Reformed was yet another daughter church, established in 1837 until 1964, when it was absorbed back into Fishkill, but they didn't bring most of their records back with them, so those are lost. In addition, the Fishkill minister also served at the Rambout Presbyterian Church, located in the hamlet of Brinkerhoff, for a number of years in the 1800s.
Wow, this is really complex.
Well, if I haven't confused you enough already, there's also the Cetus Conferentiary split in the Reformed Church in the mid to late 1700s, which was mostly over ecclesiastical independence. At some points, Poughkeepsie and the Fishkill, New Hackensack, Hopewell churches had 2 ministers, 2 consistories, and 2 sets of books each, which had the records of the marriages and baptisms. And not all of these records from both churches and 2 sets of ministers and everything else have survived. And some early marriages and baptisms can be found at the Kingston Reformed Church. Other early churches in Fishkill include the Rambout Presbyterian Church from 1746 to 1885, and the Trinity Episcopal Church, which was established in 1756, though it closed briefly during the Revolution because that was the English church, and the minister and a lot of his congregation fled to Canada. Many Methodist churches came to be in the early 1800s, and the first Catholic churches in the area were in Newburgh and Poughkeepsie in 1837. New York has been called the graveyard of genealogy, and southwestern Dutchess County is a prime example of why. However, with perseverance, information can be found.
Wow. Oh my gosh, this is fascinating. No wonder we're called the graveyard of genealogy. This is so interesting. Tony, thank you so much for giving us this really detailed introduction into Fishkill's history, and essentially those of us who are from Fishkill. I'm not originally from Fishkill, but this has certainly sparked an interest for myself. I'm curious. I'm from Connecticut, so I'm interested in looking into this myself.
I'm always jealous that I don't have any family from Fishkill.
It seems very fascinating. It's a lot of fun too. It's like a puzzle.
It is a big puzzle. I joke I have way too many people in my head that aren't mine, but I like talking to people and hearing their family and learning about them, and I'm not bored by genealogy.
Oh, We're very lucky to have you. Thank you so much for your time and expertise today. If anyone from the area is interested in learning more, you actually can set up an appointment with Toni here at the library, and she can get a little bit more into your own personal history. If you wanted to email her at fishkillhistory@aol.com, she'd be happy to set up an appointment with you. It's something, it'd be really, once you start, I think it becomes a little addicting once you get into your genealogy. So thank you so much for joining us. To Toni, again, for sharing your expertise. This is really wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. If you want to learn some more about Fishkill, these are a few books that you can get either here from Blodgett or an interlibrary loan from other libraries. This is Signal Fires on the Hudson. It was written by Willa Skinner, who was the town of Fishkill historian for over 50 years. This is another book by Willa, Remembering Fishkill. This is a good intro history to the town of Fishkill. This one is just little short essays on different things about Fishkill. Now, everyone loves photos. This is one of the images of America. There's a lot of these. This one's on Fishkill. There's ones on Beacon and East Fishkill and Beekman and Poughkeepsie. I mean, there's a lot of them on different towns, but it's all photos. Everybody loves photos, so these are fun. Just for a good history of Dutchess County, Henry Noble McCracken was a president of Vassar College. This is the first volume, Old Dutchess Forever, and the second volume is Blythe Dutchess, and it's a very readable history of Dutchess County. There's a few inaccuracies, but if you just want something a little lighter history to read. Another kind of light history, The Hudson by Carl Carmer, is another just easy read, general history of the area. Or contact me, and there's a lot more we can help you with.